So over the past week, I made these two separate pieces, which is a simple top and a wrap short. If you are following me on my social media platforms, my TikTok and my Instagram, you already know because I shared that on there. So I just want to do like a quick process video for you guys. And I haven't taken the professional videos or pictures yet. If not, I would have added it to this video in order for you guys to see what the final look looks like. But immediately I get that done, I will definitely change the thumbnail to the official professional picture. So by the time you see that thumbnail has been changed, just know that I already did that. Well, welcome again to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Annie. And if you're someone who has great interest in fashion and style, this is a great channel for you to be subscribed onto. Also, don't forget to follow on Instagram and TikTok. I've tagged the links in my description. So let's quickly go over to the matter at hand. So I have this fabric from a previous project. I just have so many of these fabric scraps lying around. And if you have something just sitting down there on your shelf, this is something you can definitely make because it didn't take a lot, because it only required a small amount of fabric. So what I'm just really doing, because there are fabrics that basically have been left around, and I'm just going to try to press the wrinkles out of them before I even make an attempt to cut or sew the fabric. There's some interesting news that I'm going to share with you guys, so make sure you wait to the end in order to get the gist of that. So I understand that most of you all really want a really step-by-step tutorial, so I'm going to put a piece of my measurement right now on screen so that you can kind of get an idea of what I am doing. Now, I have folded my fabric into two because this dress is a backless dress, and it really is the straps that are holding the dress together at the back. So mostly what we'll be drafting is only a front piece of a pattern. So I'm going to take the full length of the top, the length that I want my top to be at, and that's what I'm taking here. So now notice that this is a bustier backless top that is held with straps. So I'm just going to take the point, my bust point, and I'm going to take my bust span on that end. The bust span, which is measured as from one nip point to the other. Mine is usually 7.5 inches, but I'm working with 8 inches because of allowance. I'm leaving half an inch for sewing allowance. So I'm marking the point of my waist, which is 7 inches, the length at which my waist sits, which is 7 inches. And really those are the points that you need to mark in order to get like a perfect bustier at this point. So when you've decided on what you're taking for your bust span, make sure to, when you're taking it at the point of your waist, make sure you remove 0.5 inches. That's half an inch for your waist, so that the waist portion is a little bit more cinched than the bust, because obviously, like, the dress needs to open up to accommodate the bust much more than the waist. So I've marked my points and I'm just making the curves. I have marked 4 inches at my bust point. I've marked 3.5 inches at my waist, and I think another 3.5 at the chest point. So I'm just going to curve that out. So what I'm doing here is, essentially taking a quarter of an inch on each side for the chest, just to make the chest point tighter. Remember that the chest point is going to be 3.5, the bust point is going to be 4, and the waist point is going to be 3.5. For my measurements, of course, you might want to calculate that for your own measurements. And if you don't know how to do that, let me know in the comments and I'll help you out. At this point, I do this a lot, so I can basically just by looking at the fabric already know how much I need. But in order, I'm going to give you in a minute, I'm just going to give you the dimensions for how you are going to make the separation for the other part of the dart, for the bustier dart, in order to do that. Okay, this is it. Yeah. So this is 1.5 inches. So make sure that you spread 1.5 inches apart at the waist point. The bust points have to meet, but the waist points, make sure is 1.5 inches difference in order to give that snatched effect. So I'll just go ahead and cut. But notice that I have only taken proper measurement for the right side of the bustier. Now the left side of the bustier is not completed. I haven't taken my complete measurements there because this piece of fabric that I folded is not going to be enough. So I'm going to use this small cup to cut the original side, the original left hand side of the bustier. I hope you guys get that. So, like I told you guys, I'd have to fold a separate piece of fabric. Now, you don't need to go ahead with this step if your fabric is enough. You just need to cut your full bust, measure for your full bust, and measure for your full waist, and then just cut that directly. However, in my case, I have to place that mock up that I cut and extend it a little bit more. As you can see, I have to extend it up to 6 inches in order to be able to accommodate my bust, because if I just used it at that 3 inches, it will be too small for my size. So because of the fabric that I was short on, I have to take that to another piece of fabric folded to cut up that one. So at my waist point, you guys can see at my waist point, I'm just trying to give like an A shape. You can see the way I'm just like pulling, like extending that place out to the very end of the fabric. And that's because when the dress, from the inspiration picture, I'm going to put that on, you can see how the shape of the dress. So in order to give that shape, that is why I'm not taking it straight down. I am flaring it a bit on that side. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut the original piece. So I'm not placing the pieces over a piece of lining. Whatever you are going to use in lining your top, make sure that you cut it in the exact same way, in the exact same shape that you cut your original fabric. So here's the trick for how I want to structure the lining for this dress. Because it is a backless dress and because this piece of lining is going to be showing on the sides, and I do not want that. I want the self fabric, that is the main fabric, to be the one showing. It's not like it's going to be showing completely, but it might be poking out, and I don't want this lining fabric to be the one poking out. So I'm just going to cut a few inches, like you can see what I did there, 1.5 inches on that edge, that is like on the two edges, both the right and the left hand side, on the two edges of this top. And I'm going to be cutting those pieces on the self fabric because I do not want the lining to be poking out. I'm just going to put the final what the final outcome is like, and I think that when you see that, you kind of get what I'm trying to do here, and you'll be able to do that too. So in order not to get confused at all, cut your lining completely. Cut it as if you're going to use the entire lining in lining the top. So once you've done that, then you're just going to remove the part. That is, you're going to take your measuring tape and measure that exact same 1.5 inches and just use your ruler to take it straight down. I don't have a ruler, but you guys already know I use freehand a lot. So just take your ruler and make it go straight. And when you cut, then you're going to cut away the piece that I just explained to you, that you will be cutting in the same self fabric in order so that the lining doesn't, like, it's not poking out. So here is that piece of lining that I want to cut to replicate in the self fabric, and I'm just going to place it over the remaining piece of self fabric that I have, and I'm just going to use that to form the shape, because I'm going to be joining this to the black lining. I'm going to be joining this self fabric to the black lining in order to form the entire black lining for the inside, the interior of the top. I'm just going to put a picture because at this point I really don't even know what I'm saying. I don't know if what I'm saying makes sense, but I hope that you guys are smart. Come on, I'm sure that you get that. But if you still have any questions, please feel free to ask in the comments. You can see how I cut the main fabric. You can see that there's some space on the sides, and that is intentional because by the time I'm joining that self fabric to the lining, it's a little allowance is needed. Okay, so that's what that leaves to space. You can just leave like 1/4 inch because by the time you are joining that, because now this is part of the lining. So this was what I initially intended for to be the straps, and I'm going to put the original design that I got that I wanted to replicate. And the straps were for some reason too thin, and I had to like swap them for these two straps last minute because they were too thin, and I felt like they were too revealing for the function I needed them for. So I had to swap the thin straps. But if you want yours to look like this and you want to do the thin straps, that's totally fine. I'm sure that they're fire and you rock them, but I had to swap mine last minute for something a little bit more conservative. So I'm just going to iron on my interfacing on all the back side of the self fabric. So I'm going to just do that real quick. So I have ironed on the interfacing, and this is what you should have. It should look like this, and you're going to join all three pieces together the way it is laid on the table right now. So you could try to pin your pieces down before taking it to the sewing machine. This makes it easier for you if you are a beginner. In order to sew out those curves, it makes it faster and it makes it more precise. So you can go ahead and do that. So here I have sewn all three pieces together, and I'm just clipping the threads, and I would proceed to go and iron the seams open. So the seams you just sewn, go ahead and press them open. So also do the same thing for the lining pieces. Now you should have one, two, three, four, five. You should have five pieces of lining pieces. Oh goodness me, English. Well, what you get what I'm trying to say. You should have five pieces of them and go ahead and join them together. And that's what I've done here. So it's the exact same way for the bust. And you can see what I'm trying to achieve here. The self fabric, the main fabric is on the sides, on the edges, so that when you're wearing it and when you turn, people won't easily notice the lining. I just like it that way. So these were the thin straps that I cut, and I'm going to give you the dimensions because they're basically the same length with what I eventually used, but the width I had to increase the width of what I eventually used. But the in case you'll be going for these thin straps, I went with 50 inches in length, and I went with 1.5 inch on the width. So go ahead, cut your straps with those. So go ahead, cut your straps with that dimension, and then sew it on the edge, just thinly straight down, just sew it on the very edge of the fabric, and then you can use your safety pin to turn the you can use your safety pin to turn the strip of fabric over, and then go ahead and press. That's what I was doing here. The front piece of my dress, the front piece of my top is coming together nicely. I have pressed it. If you have that bust mold, I can't remember the exact name for it, but if you have that bust mold, it will be good for you to press and shape on the bust to get that curve. You can see I really pressed it well, and you could easily see the curve on my own. So these four pieces I cut to be the loops on the sides, because you'll be having four loops, two loops on each side, one at two at each bust points on each side, and two at each waist point on each side. So this is what I did. I sewed them down exactly the same way that I did the strip of fabric. So for the final piece, go ahead and put those loops in place. Make sure that you pin them nicely in place with your lining and your self fabric. Make sure that you take your time in doing it. Do not put the loops outward in the other way or the other way. Remember, the loops are going to poke out. So just take your time. Look carefully at the video. Take your time in watching this video, because I have shown the process of how I did it. So if you are in a hurry or you're trying to rush this, you might miss it. So just take time, watch this video, and see how I demonstrated on how you should put the loop. So make sure you put the loop, you sew all four corners except the down point, because that is the point in which you use to turn the outfit over. As you can see now, I have sewn all the points and I'm just turning the outfit over. You can see the loops are already poking out on all 4 points. You can see. So that's exactly what you should aim to achieve. So I'm just going to take it again to my ironing board, and I'm just going to give it a very good press. So this was what I eventually swapped the back part of the top to be, because the first straps were too thin, like I explained to you guys. And guys, I can't wait to show you guys the pictures and the videos. So go on to my social media platform, go on to my TikTok and my Instagram, because once the video is out, I'll be sharing it on those platforms. Thank you guys so much. Enjoy your top and subscribe. Make sure you click the subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next video.